Inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Healthcare with human kindness is here. It's at Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Together, we have a common purpose, partnering with you in health and healing using powerful medicine, powerful technology, and the greatest power of all, human kindness. You'll know it when you see it, because human kindness is in every care site and in every caregiver. Common Spirit Health. Hello, human kindness.
Debbie Myler, wife of Attorney General candidate Frank Myler. Several years ago, Frank and I formed Beauty from Ashes, a nonprofit that helps bring gospel solutions to those in abusive marriages. We use the courts to protect the most vulnerable. We have to have an Attorney General like Frank who cares about and works to provide the legal help people need. Vote Frank Myler for Utah Attorney General.
This is Frank Myler, and I approve this ad. Paid for by the Committee to elect Frank Myler Attorney General.
Traffic and weather together now, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meeks.
Crews are still working on this crash in Taylorsville, and it's still blocking left lanes of travel, both directions of I-215's West Belt at about 5400 South. But there are only delays on the northbound side, not quite back to Redwood Road. Fill up your bucket list in Box Elder County. History, recreation, and wildlife, and excellent dining and shopping await you. Learn more at visitboxeldercounty.com. Sponsored by the Utah Office of Tourism. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Partly cloudy, hot today with a high of 95, 94 tomorrow with a chance of rain, and highs stay in the 90s through the weekend. And right now we're at 90 degrees with sunny skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
80 years ago today, one of the largest, most ambitious, and most successful military campaigns in human history was launched. D-Day marked an unprecedented invasion operation of Allied forces onto the beaches of Normandy with the aim of liberating occupied France and defeating the German army that had taken over much of Europe. And to the benefit of every single one of us and everyone who's lived since that day, they were successful in creating space for all of us. And so today we go past all the headlines and we get to the real issues as we honor those who fought and died, those who still remain, though decreasing in number. And we learn the lessons from 80 years ago, 40 years ago, and what they actually mean for us today and for tomorrow. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we've been covering throughout the day today here on KSL News Radio, it is the 80th year since an unprecedented effort, really within the parentheses of a crazy idea. The fact that everything was successful in the end is absolutely extraordinary and is a testament to the heroism of the men, the women. I even read early this morning about the chaplains, one chaplain in particular that was part of the airdrop in behind enemy lines and who was immediately administering care and last rites and providing comfort to so many on that horrific day, an extraordinary day in the history of the world, in the history of freedom, as it marched forward, as it marched against Nazi Germany and those forces that sought to take it all away. And so as we look back, it's interesting to think that it was 80 years ago today. And then we'll look back 40 years ago today. Often when we talk about this day, many people reference an extraordinary speech delivered by then President Ronald Reagan. And we'll come to that in just a moment. Presidents of both political parties, of course, have taken place in various festivities there on those hallowed grounds for decades and decades. And today we'll start off with the current president, Joe Biden. He talked about the price of freedom during his address there in Normandy today and the need for us to rise up and meet our moment, just as those warriors in 1944 met theirs.
History tells us freedom is not free. If you want to know the price of freedom, come here to Normandy. Come to Normandy and look. Go to the other cemeteries in Europe where our fallen heroes rest. Go back home to Arlington Cemetery. In their generation, in their hour of trial, the Allied forces of D-Day did their duty. Now the question for us is, in our hour of trial, will we do ours? We're living in a time when democracy is more at risk across the world than any point since the end of World War II, since these beaches were stormed. Now we have to ask ourselves, will we stand against tyranny, against evil? Will we stand for freedom? Will we defend democracy? Will we stand together? My answer is yes, it only can be yes.
It only can be yes. I thought the president did a nice job in his remarks. A few points where he got a little too on the political side for me on such a day as today. This is not the day to be talking about positioning or talking about people you're running against or talking about some of those other things that are, to me, distractions from a day like today and actually prevent us from focusing on the essence of the day. And that is that there were people who were willing to give that last full measure of devotion, who believed in freedom, who weren't there for conquest, who weren't there for their own aggrandizement or for their own headlines or profit, but were simply there to end aggression, to end tyranny, to end those that sought to take over others' freedoms and others' sovereign territory. And so I thought the president did a nice job today on balance to do that. And it's important for the president to be there today. He was there. He had the right message. And, of course, the big test is going to be what happens next. He did it in the conclusion of his speech saying, the answer has to be yes. Will we rise to meet the challenge of our day? The answer has to be yes. He's absolutely right. It has to be yes. Failure is not an option. And we have a role to play in the world. Now, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin also addressed the living veterans of D-Day who attended the ceremony, and he personally thanked them for their heroism.
You helped defeat what Churchill called a monstrous tyranny never surpassed in the dark, lamentable catalog of human crime. And you laid the foundation for a more just, free, and decent world. Together with our allies, we built peace out of war, a hard-headed peace, a peace forged by the generation that won the bloodiest war in human history. And so our gratitude must never fade.
Our gratitude must never fade. And we were just talking here in the studio about how young those service members had to be, those that are 98 years of age, that are 102, and they are some of the very last. In fact, if we do this same celebration on the 85th anniversary, I don't know that any of them will be left, but they were very young. And to think that the world trusted and depended and counted on those so incredibly young to do such an extraordinary thing gives me a lot of hope. We often talk a little negatively about the young people of the day. The young people will rise up, folks. They will do it just as the greatest generation did, for sure. Now, I want to catapult to 40 years ago today. Then President Ronald Reagan gave his address. And it's always interesting to me, that was such an interesting pivot point. So 40 years ago today, President Reagan delivered his address on the beaches of Normandy. And President Reagan stood exactly in the middle. It had been 40 years since D-Day to Reagan, and now it's been 40 years since Reagan to where we are today. And the lessons transcend all of those years.
We're here to mark that day in history when the Allied armies joined in battle to reclaim this continent to liberty. For 4 long years, much of Europe had been under a terrible shadow. Free nations had fallen. Jews cried out in the camps. Millions cried out for liberation. Europe was enslaved, and the world prayed for its rescue. Here in Normandy, the rescue began. Here, the Allies stood and fought against tyranny in a giant undertaking unparalleled in human history.
unparalleled in human history. And it was within the parentheses of a crazy idea that they thought that this plan would work and that freedom would march forward and defeat tyranny. In the close of his speech 40 years ago, remembering the events of 80 years ago, Reagan gave the invitation that not just to the people of the United States, but to all of our allies around the world, that we rededicate ourselves to that same cause that those brave soldiers of World War II fought and died for.
We're bound today by what bound us 40 years ago, the same loyalties, traditions, and beliefs. We're bound by reality. The strength of America's allies is vital to the United States, and the American security guarantee is essential to the continued freedom of Europe's democracies. We were with you then, we're with you now. Your hopes are our hopes, and your destiny is our destiny. Here in this place, where the West held together, let us make a vow to our dead. Let us show them by our actions that we understand what they died for. Strengthened by their courage, heartened by their value, and born by their memory, let us continue to stand for the ideals for which they lived and died.
Let us show by our actions today that we understood what they fought for, what they died for, and what some lived to tell the tale for. And the fact that Reagan connected all of that to the importance of having allies and alliances around the world, no one can do it alone. The United States of America is not the world's policeman. It's not the enforcer of all things, but it does have a unique space. And as all great powers, you don't just mind your own business, you help shape the future. And those that stormed the beaches of Normandy 80 years ago shaped our future, and it's up to us to shape it for the generations to come. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Utah's school vouchers.
10,000 of these kids are using this scholarship.
Facing a UEA lawsuit.
The voucher program has siphoned off $82 million.
David DeGenovic have you covered.
Help me and our listeners understand why this is a violation of the Utah State Constitution.
Weekdays at 9 on KSL News Radio.
It is time to go for the gold. Gold tier checking at Hercules Credit Union. All you have to do is open up a gold tier checking account. You'll get a new promotional rate of 4.25% on the balance in your checking account. Not talking about savings account. With your gold tier checking account, you earn 4.25% interest on your balance. That's amazing. You'll also earn points every time you use your debit card, and of course, those points can be redeemed for all kinds of extraordinary things, travel and gift cards, cash back, and much more. You also get free credit monitoring, so important when you're trying to build a stronger financial future, to know where you are. So free credit monitoring is part of your gold tier checking, no monthly fees, as always, with your gold tier checking status. And so it's time to get going for the gold. Check it out at Hercules Credit Union. They have locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, Riverton, or Salt Lake City. Or as always, with our friends at Hercules, just find them online at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Do you find it exhausting getting up from your favorite chair every day? Say goodbye to discomfort and hello to a world of ease. Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. And you have so many options when buying a lift chair. For the highest quality, always come to Alpine. Our lift chairs are more than just furniture. They're your ticket to independence and relaxation. Plus, with our spring savings event, we've just marked down some of our chairs that are ready for you to take home. With an unbelievable warranty, you can shop with confidence knowing your comfort is our priority. So stop by any of our 11 locations today and explore our high-quality inventory. Or visit us online at alpinehomemedical.com. That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
What a great time of year. The weather is just wonderful. You can do so many fun things right now. And, of course, events are happening. We've got the graduations. We've got some great trips you're planning. You ought to be planning a trip to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Here in the great state of Utah, we have 2 locations right here along the Wasatch Front and back. We've got Hotel Park City and, of course, downtown Salt Lake City. Father's Day is coming up, too, so make sure you're taking care of dear old Dad with a trip to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, or, of course, one of those great gift cards. What dad wouldn't love that? From the sizzling steaks, the fish, or the chicken, special seasonal items, you're never going to have a better meal than that meal that is waiting for you right now at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. And plan early for the special events. Make sure you've got your reservations and get ready for the dining experience that the entire family will absolutely love. Hotel Park City, downtown Salt Lake City. Ruth's Chris.
Your neighbor Greg loves the springtime here in Utah, but he hates to paint, so he called Rhino Shield.
We live in a beautiful two-story home that was built in 1916. Really been prepped and painted very, very poorly.
Rhino Shield ceramic technology is formulated for our unique climate here in Utah and is Class 1 fire rated.
We really had a lot of detail work in the team at Rhino Shield. We spent really 4 days just on the prep work, and we were so excited to see that. And the cleanup was just impeccable.
Utah, get the 25-year guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield right now for 15% off the regular price.
We've gotten numerous compliments, and we've actually even had some of the longer-term residents of our community thank us for protecting the integrity of our home.
This offer is limited, so call now 435-246-4466, 435-246-4466, or rhinoshieldwest.com.
Go Rhino Shield! Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a cement truck crashed into a barricade on I-215 this morning, caused huge traffic delays. Second, there are places to stay cool in Salt Lake County as temperatures reach into the mid-90s. And third, Boeing's Starliner finally made it to the International Space Station. 90 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
As we continue to look at many of the stark divides between elite private universities, public institutions, that seems to be wide and widening. There's a growing chorus of voices questioning the fairness of the substantial tax benefits enjoyed by a lot of the schools with massive endowments. So if you can explore some innovative taxation models that could possibly channel some resources towards different kinds of initiatives like workforce development, financial aid, there's a potential to forge a really different kind of more equitable higher education landscape. And we want to get into that and explore what that really means with Mark Schneider. Mark was the director of the Institute of Education Sciences and is a distinguished professor emeritus of political science at Stony Brook University. Had a great piece in The Hill. Mark, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So give us a little bit of the lay of the land there. Obviously, there's some irritation with a lot of the large institutions. The one I think that gets quoted the most, I think, is Harvard with about a $51 billion endowment. So give us kind of a sense from your perspective in terms of what's going on with these large endowments, and is this something we should be taking a real closer look at?
Well, to answer the second part of your question is yes, we should be taking a closer look at these because the inequality in the distribution of endowments is one of the biggest inequalities I've ever seen in almost anything. It makes the inequality in income look like nothing. So we have a bunch of, you mentioned Harvard with $51 billion. But, you know, Harvard has the largest endowment, but it also has something like 30,000 students. The best endowed per student at university is Princeton, which has an endowment of about $35 billion and only has about 8,800 students.
Wow.
So if you do the math, and we've done the math before, but it's like every student in Princeton gets about $100,000 in taxpayer subsidies, right? And then I mean, that's a lot of money. And then if you look at public universities, state-supported universities, where taxpayers are supporting for the kids, really. I mean, most citizens go to state universities, they get like a fraction of that, right? I mean, Princeton gets about $100,000 per student, and Rutgers gets maybe $15,000 per student.
Wow. That those numbers are stunning.
They are stunning. They are stunning, and it hasn't changed any. In 2016, the Congress enacted a small endowment tax, and it just I mean, campuses are still paying it, but it's like never. It's not transparent. We don't know which campuses are still paying. We don't know how much they're paying. And this is all part of this, like, oh, elite universities are untouchable. Well, they should be touched.
Yeah, and so let's talk about some of the proposals that you put forward, some things that you've submitted. Some members of Congress, bipartisan, has looked at some of those solutions in terms of how do we change that dynamic a little bit in terms of what we're actually delivering to students. I think that's the real bottom line of why all these institutions exist, whether it's a private university like Princeton or whether it's a state college, in terms of what actually comes out the other end and the benefit to the taxpayers who are fitting the bill.
They're footing a very large bill. So one of the things that happened in the previous round was that in 2016, we had proposed, and I was working with the Senate Finance Committee, we had proposed that the money, the yield, be put in a special account only for the improvement of community college students, right? So community colleges are our largest workforce training program in the country. We need high-skilled workers, especially with regard to STEM and with regard to, all the new work on AI. We just need a whole new generation, a much larger generation of students with technical capacities, CT, career technical education. Community colleges do most of that, and if the ratio went from 100,000 for Princeton to 12 or 15,000 for Rutgers, the local community college was about $4,000 or $5,000. Wow! So we are starving a lot of the community colleges that are educating students that are going to go into the workforce. So we try to set up a fund that would have been for community college improvement, and the Congress didn't do that, and instead the tax went into the general fund. So this time around, there is a proposal for what's called short-term Pell, and Pell grants are given to students with low income, and right now it could only go to students who are enrolled in degree-seeking activities. But short-term Pell would bust that open, and students who are in shorter-term programs, not necessarily degree programs, in high-demand fields, would now be eligible for Pell grants. The Office of Management and Budget, the Congressional Budget Office costed that out at about $160 million a year. And of course, as you know, every once in a while the Congress says, hey, what's the pay for? How are we going to pay for this? Right? So we could easily put a small tax on these 37 schools, and we could generate more than enough money to pay for the short-term Pell. And if, as inevitably will happen, endowments don't go up so fast, or they may even go down, we would be building up a reserve fund to keep paying for short-term Pell.
Yeah, that is so fascinating. When I have to admit, when I first read the headline, this is why we don't just read the headlines, we always get underneath the headlines. The headline was how a tax on university endowments could help reduce our labor shortage. I thought, how in the world are you going to connect that dot? It all makes sense to me now, and we appreciate you walking us through that and explaining it because, and again, this is not a big target on these big universities that have $51 billion or $25 billion in those endowments. This is a very small tax that could be very beneficial. And again, if they're getting the equivalent of a benefit of about $100,000 per at Princeton, $12,000 at Rutgers, and probably $4,000 at a community college, somehow it seems like we could do a lot for the workforce by reinvesting that money in a little different way.
You're absolutely right, and we need to do that, right? I mean, we really need to figure out. So we have a workforce shortage, right? Skilled workers, as we all know, are in short supply, and the short-term Pell program is designed to help students develop careers in jobs in high-demand areas. We need to figure out how to pay for it Princeton with, $100,000 in taxpayer money per student, Harvard with $51 billion endowment. That's not fair, right? It's not what the country needs.
Fascinating stuff. Mark Snyder, former director of the Institute of Education Sciences, distinguished professor emeritus of political science at Stony Brook University. I learned something new today. This is why we do this show, so I can learn something new. I had never thought of it in those terms, to workforce connection. That is brilliant thinking, and worth all of us thinking again about what we think we know in terms of what's happening in higher education. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, again, that's Mark Snyder, and I had not thought about it this way, but man, you start looking at those numbers, and it will get you thinking again. If the equivalent of someone at Princeton University receiving about $100,000 per year in taxpayer support per student, versus only like $12,000 for a university like Rutgers just down the road, or Harvard versus the University of Massachusetts Amherst, those are just crazy numbers. And these big, large endowments that, again, part of those things are coming through what we're all paying in taxes. That's something we got to maybe rethink what we think we know on that one. Great conversation. We'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next right here on KSL News Radio. Stick around.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour. In southern Utah, firefighters have been called to deal with another wildfire, this time close to Orderville. Caused a power outage for area residents. Garcane Energy says it has crews on the way. Today kicks off the first heat wave of June, with the high being around 15 degrees above normal. KSL meteorologist Matt Johnson says 95 degrees might not seem like a big deal, but our bodies aren't acclimated to the heat just yet.
Don't be surprised if you're feeling a little more affected by the heat today, simply because we went through the whole entire spring, through the entire month of May, without anything near this warm.
Johnson says the record high for this date in Salt Lake is 97 degrees. St. George predicted to hit 108, which would be a record high for the date. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Well, Hunter Biden is on trial in Delaware, accused of lying on a form to obtain a firearm. The key fact the prosecution trying to establish in that case is whether he was using drugs during the period of time when he possessed that firearm. None of the witnesses so far have said that. The defense trying to take advantage of that fact. The president's son is accused of lying about his drug use on that form. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day, 82 points, while the NASDAQ is down 22. And our KSL weather, it's going to stay hot for several days. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the nines, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
The best things in life, they come in twos. 2 scoops of ice cream, 2 tacos. And now for a limited time, get our best deal of the year. Buy any phone when you switch to Consumer Cellular and get 2 months of service free. That's right, the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage as Big Wireless, now with 2 months free. Proof the best things in life really do come in twos. Visit consumercellular.com or call 1-888-FREEDOM. Second and third month of monthly base service fee waived for new customers with the purchase of a phone and activation by July 31st, 2024. Taxes, fees, and third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Pro Paint Days are back at Lowe's. Save $40 on select 5-gallon HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams paint, like Weather Shield, Showcase, or ceiling paint. Plus, save $10 on drywall PVA primer and get free same-day delivery to the job site when you order by 2 p.m. Lowe's knows paint. Lowe's knows pros. Offers valid through 6/14. Delivery by 8 p.m. Subject to driver availability. Additional terms apply. See Lowe's.com/same-day delivery for details.
The fight to defeat the swamp, defend our constitutional liberties, and put America first starts in Utah with conservative outsider Trent Staggs. As mayor of Riverton, Staggs stood up to Rhino Mitt Romney, fought against unconstitutional government COVID lockdowns and mandates, and Staggs was the first candidate to endorse President Donald Trump. Now, conservative Trent Staggs will continue to defend our conservative values by taking the fight to Washington, D.C. and defeating the swamp. In Congress, Staggs will partner with fellow conservative Rand Paul to protect our constitutional liberties, end taxpayer-funded handouts to Ukraine, secure our border, and deport illegal aliens. That's why Trent Staggs has earned President Trump and Senator Rand Paul's complete and total endorsement. A proven conservative, taking the fight to the Washington swamp. Trent Staggs for U.S. Senate. Protect Freedom PAC paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. www.protectfreedompac.com.
You wouldn't know it, but most financial advisors are put in a box. I'm Jeff Jr. from Trajan Wealth, and I want to provide you a little insight about financial advisors. Most financial advisors have to sell what their company requires them to sell, and many advisors have to only adhere to what's called a suitability standard. A suitability standard is a limited standard of care, not requiring what's sold to be best just suitable. Advisors with this loose standard often have limited investment and product selection. Trajan Wealth is held to a fiduciary standard, which is the highest standard of care in the advisory business. And that's just one of the many reasons we have billions of dollars under our care and attract clients from other advisors. Raise your standards today and call Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Right now, crews remain on the scene of this Taylorsville crash, but the delays are easing pretty quickly. If you are traveling I-215's West Belt, both directions are affected at about 5400 South. Again, it's left lanes blocked in Taylorsville. But now we're starting to see a little bit of backup on the southbound side. No major delays, just traffic going through that area. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Partly cloudy and hot today, high 95, 94 tomorrow with a chance of rain, and highs stay in the 90s through the weekend. Right now, 90 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Great to be with you today, as always. I am Boyd Matheson, and as we continue to march our way through the day today, obviously on a day marked by D-Day, 80th anniversary, there's a lot to reflect on. There's a lot of things that we need to make sure we're focused on as it relates to remembering, because as I've said often on this show, what we tend to ignore or forget, our children may never know, and what our children do not know, our grandchildren are unlikely to possess. And we've talked about how from the beginning of our country, it's been the entrepreneur, the small business owner that has really fueled freedom and driven it across the decades. They always drive freedom. We always talk about the Founding Fathers as great, wise, and noble, and of course they were, but they were really just a bunch of entrepreneurs and small business owners who were tired of being overtaxed and overregulated. They just wanted to move things forward. And the same thing holds true today. I really think entrepreneurs and small business owners drive so many things. And right now in the United States, small business owners are facing a labor crisis that threatens their growth and their survival. And many of them, of course, are trying to hire local. They're often forced to turn to some temporary foreign workers through the H-1B visa programs just to meet some of those basic things. And yet that whole system has some things that are pretty tough to navigate and pretty arbitrary in terms of some of the caps and so on. And so we wanted to dig into that because I do think it drives freedom everywhere. And, of course, when we look at things like visa and workers and those coming to this country, we always turn to Fiona Harrigan, associate editor at Reason, where she covers immigration and foreign policy. Great piece at Reason.com talking about American small businesses being desperate for foreign workers because it's no longer a choice. It's become a necessity. And Fiona, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So give us a little bit of you outlined in your piece at Reason just some of the realities that many small business owners are facing. Give us a sense of some of those stories.
Right. So, I think when we talk about the labor crisis, we tend to think about that in pretty vague terms. But more specifically, right now, as of mid-May, and this is from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, there are 8.5 million job openings in the country, but only 6.5 million unemployed workers. So there's really this disconnect right now between job openings and unemployed workers. And what that means in practice is that there are many American businesses that can't find enough workers, and now they're looking to hire people from abroad to fill that work. That's really, really true of small seasonal businesses. And when we talk about this visa program, the H-2B visa, largely that brings in landscaping workers, but it also brings people to ski resorts, hospitality businesses, to fishing and restaurants, carnivals, resorts, and so on. So it really touches a lot of aspects of our daily lives and our enjoyable lives. So that visa program, the H-2B visa, it's for temporary, non-agricultural, non-immigrant workers. So this is a temporary and very seasonally oriented visa. And in theory, this would be a really great way to relieve some of this labor shortage pressure and to incentivize people to pursue legal migration pathways instead of crossing the border illegally to come find work.
Yeah.
But this visa program is imperfect, it's complicated, it's bureaucratic, and businesses are still really struggling to get the workers they need.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things that is always, well, I'll say it drives me crazy. we have people who want to do it the right way. We have small business owners who want to do it the right way, but the system is so difficult to navigate. As you said, there's some of these arbitrary caps. There's all of these different requirements that sometimes seem to be enforced and sometimes they're ignored. What do we need to do in terms of the system and the policy to make it a right way where businesses are incentivized to do it the right way? They can do it that way and get the workers that they actually need.
Yeah, and just to zoom out a little bit and talk about the more specific issues that these small businesses face, we're talking about over 175 rules regulating everything from recruitment to wages. We're talking about very, very expensive compliance and participation in the program. There's one advocacy group for this visa, and it estimates that businesses spend between $1,500 and $3,000 for every single H-2B worker they bring in. So a lot of these businesses, it's important to say, they don't necessarily look to this as their first option or as cheap labor, which I think a lot of people might think reflexively. This is really necessary and expensive and annoying for them. And there are a couple big factors that are important to address to make this program better. The two that are really big, there's a lottery distribution system for this visa. So the lottery, it approves entire petitions rather than individual workers from each petition, which means that businesses either get all of their workers for the year or none of them. So that's a really, really big problem. And then there's also this yearly cap. So it's artificially limited to 66,000 H-2B visas being granted every single year. That might sound like a big number, but demand far outstrips supply every single year. And it's an arbitrary number that hasn't changed since it was established in 1990. Wow. So super bureaucratic, super locked into old ways and to kind of ineffective distribution. And those are really, really important to get some relief for those businesses.
Yeah, I want to unpack two of the things that you mentioned. One, the compliance cost. This is often a thing that I think small businesses and growing businesses get the most frustrated with. If you have to spend an additional $1,500 to $3,000 just for the compliance, just to be compliant that you have a worker that's on an H-2B visa, these small businesses don't have armies of lawyers and lobbyists and people who can just do the system and play the system in terms of compliance. So talk to me about that a little bit. And then I also want you to get to the myth that a lot of people say, oh, well, these people are taking American jobs, which also seems to be a little bit of hyperbole and myth-making as opposed to reality.
Right. So when I talk to these businesses for this piece, something that comes up again and again in the way that they talk about it is they say they're getting essentially punished for doing the right thing or for wanting to do the right thing. They want to hire legal workers, and they say that they have undocumented people coming to them, and it would be so much easier for them to hire them, but they really want to do the right thing. And, it's just impossible in some ways under this current system. So they go without workers and they have to forego work and growth opportunities. I think it's kind of, it's easy to say that American workers should be working these jobs, but we have real life proof that that doesn't happen to the extent that we would think. During the pandemic, Donald Trump banned the entry of H-2B workers, and in his words, it was an attempt to protect the U.S. labor market. But the Cato Institute analyzed government data, which showed that almost no U.S. workers applied for H-2B jobs despite spiking unemployment under the pandemic. What you actually hear from these businesses is that bringing in these workers, these H-2B workers, creates things like supervisory roles and leadership positions for Native Born Americans. It gives them opportunities to progress in their careers and progress in management. So without those H-2B workers, it actually limits opportunities for Native Born Americans, which isn't necessarily what we would expect if we hear about this firsthand.
Yeah, that's such a great clarifier. Again, we always have to think again about what we think we know in a lot of these things when it comes to these bureaucracies. One of the things that you said at the conclusion of your piece, Fiona, that I just loved, that when members of Congress or policymakers are failing to reform just the pathway to these H-2B visas, they're forcing businesses to forego growth and provide, the things they want in terms of that standard for their customers and clients around the country. Is there anything on the horizon in terms of some of the changes? Again, knowing that a lot of these were set in place in the 90s, is there anything on the horizon that says, hey, we can start making some changes that will benefit small businesses?
This is something that pops up again and again, things like relief for that visa cap or things like what's called a returning worker exemption, which would exempt from the annual caps workers who were previously employed under the H-2B program, just things that would kind of ease the system in some small and some big ways. Those pop up year after year, but, something I hear from these business owners is that it seems like at the 11th hour, the H-2B relief is always cut. And it being an immigration issue, right? This isn't necessarily an immigrant visa. This is a temporary non-immigrant visa explicitly, but because it gets tied into migration and visas and those sorts of things, it can become very, very contentious. So I think, unfortunately, it kind of falls into that bucket of controversial and politically contentious. But hopefully, as people realize that economic growth and the labor shortages, those are so important, and this is such an important area to address and such an important factor in that, that hopefully this will be on the table again and this will be a priority.
Yeah, so important. Fiona Harrigan, Associate Editor at Reason. You can check out her piece at reason.com. This is one we have to get to for our entrepreneurs and our small business owners for sure. Fiona, as always, thanks for the perspective. Great thinking, great writing. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll step aside for a quick break. More Inside Sources coming up next right here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
All of your favorite KSL hosts in the palm of your hand.
Hello, good morning.
Hey, it's so early.
They're on your phone.
Great vacation photos.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was fun.
Courtesy of the KSL News Radio app.
That's a family-friendly movie. I think you'll really enjoy it. Okay, then. Buy tickets.
When you can't listen live,
Can we talk about something?
Can it wait just a little bit? I got a meeting.
Okay, cool. We'll be here.
listen on the app. The app for KSL News Radio.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
Do you spend all day staring at screens? Whether it's your phone, computer, or television, too much screen time can have a serious impact on your eyes, causing eye strain, nearsightedness, fatigue, and even headaches. Now, protecting your eyes is easier than ever with new Nordic's Blueberry Eye Supplements. Specifically formulated to improve eye health, new Nordic's Blueberry Supplements not only protect your eyes, but help improve night vision as well as relieve and minimize eye fatigue and damage caused by digital devices. Only New Nordic uses wild Swedish blueberries because of their superior concentration of color pigments. These pigments are vital to eye function, macular health, and your overall vision. New Nordic's Blueberry Eye Supplements are Scandinavia's #1 selling natural eye formulas and have been for over 20 years. They are now available in America. Find them online at Amazon.com or NewNordicUSA.com or in stores at Meijer. Search Blueberry Eye Supplements on Amazon or go to NewNordicUSA.com.
Progressive presents 10 things on a plumber's to-do list that are harder than getting a small business insurance quote. Waking up for 5 a.m. plumbing disasters, finding out why water is pouring from the ceiling, replacing a pipe in a home from the 1800s, then dealing with invoices or your awkward apprentice or that really weird smell, and then there's breathing and eating and, of course, clogs. But the easiest thing on any small business owner's to-do list? Seeing if you could save on the business insurance that's right for you. Get a quote in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you're always looking for ways to position your operation to create opportunities and move on them faster. With Bank of America, you get access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter. Locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2024 Bank of America N.A.
Hey, have you saved more than $200,000 in an IRA or 401k? You may not realize it now, but you've got a big problem on your hands. And that problem is taxes. Because if you don't take advantage of some tax planning strategies now, Uncle Sam could take a big chunk of your hard-earned retirement savings. Learn how you could reduce the taxes on your IRA and 401k with a free retirement tax savings analysis. It's from Boss Retirement Solutions. If you've saved more than $200,000, schedule your free tax strategy session now by calling 801-896-9622. Discover the tax planning strategies that could dramatically reduce your taxes in retirement. Call 801-896-9622. That's 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with human kindness is here. Hello, human kindness.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a wildfire burning near the southern Utah town of Orderville. Second, Hunter Biden is admitted to using drugs, but the key question at his trial is whether he was using drugs during the time he possessed a firearm. And third, there are a couple of places in Utah where it's warm enough right now to water ski. 90 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and of course, we are full-on sprint to primary election day coming up on June the 25th. You should have a ballot sitting on your kitchen table. If not, it might still be in your mailbox, and that is your duty to weigh in and to make your voice heard, make your vote count. We often talk about the big races, the presidential race, the governor's race, Senate races, but the races that really impact your day-to-day life are the ones that are much closer to you. And so today we're going to focus on one of those, the Salt Lake County Council. We're going to get that right, Salt Lake County Council. Mike Carey is one of those running for that post and joins us in studio today. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So the first question always has to be, why you? Why this race?
Sure. So, I've been in construction for 23 years, moved out here 13 years ago with my wife and 3 kids down to Cottonwood Heights from the East Coast. I like to often say we fled the bad government policies of the East Coast and refer to myself as a Washington, D.C. area refugee. And, we fell in love with the place right out of the gate and really made it our home. And, some changes in my career over to the consulting world last year. I figured I'd have the capacity to serve on the county council, which is not a full-time deal. And then, frankly, just been disappointed in some of the local decisions that have been made in recent years. As a parent of 3 kids, I saw firsthand the negative consequences of a lot of our COVID policy with the kids in schools and masks and a lot of the hand-wringing we saw out of leadership when, we have the beauty of hindsight now and to know that there were a lot of mistakes made. So I figured, why me? I'm coming at this thing clean. I have no strings attached. Yeah. I've not been in political life ever before this. So I'm looking, if the council is meant to be a representative of the community, including the at-large community, who better than someone that's from it?
Yeah, we just got done talking about the business, small businesses in particular, some of the struggles they have and just navigating all of the labyrinth of things, whether it's H-2B visas, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. But it are those entrepreneurs that really drive freedom for us in our country, and making sure we have both the systems in place, but also the economic development opportunities. Big part of what happens on a county council. Give us some perspective there in terms of a vision of what economic development would look like for you.
Well, again, the beauty of hindsight. Being in construction, I moved out there to build a huge data center. Okay, even though I love building big projects, I don't know that maybe high arid desert is the best location for mass consumption of water at these facilities that employ very few people after they're built. So when we look at economic development, at the state level between EDC Utah and GOEO's policies over the last few years, I would like to really see us pivot and move towards durable goods manufacturing services, and the skilled trades. We know our skilled trades are aging out. The people who actually construct all these facilities, the average age of an electrician in Utah is 55 years old. That's not sustainable. So I'd like to see us maybe pivot a little bit and put a little more focus on careers, not just jobs, but careers that will actually employ the middle class and the folks that are questioning whether a higher education is worth it, a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, because of the tremendous cost and debt burden that they're seeing these days.
Yeah, I think that's so vital. Some of those, that's an astonishing number to me. 55 years is the average of an electrician.
What happens in 10 years?
Yeah, where do we go from here? And revitalizing those trades is so vital to us, and whether that's dealing with the technical schools, the colleges, the degree programs, the certification programs. What else can we do in that space in terms of that development to make sure we've got a workforce that can actually support what we're going to need from construction to a whole host of other jobs?
Sure. Well, just last week, my campaign, we organized a career fair 1 block north or 2 blocks north up at West High, and we called it with the football team. They asked us for help to put this on, and so we brought in 10 employers from fire, EMS, police, a couple of the trades, general contractors, and not a criticism of the school districts, but that's not West is not a technical high school, so these kids had no idea these careers were out there. It's as lame as it sounds. I think it's a marketing and communications problem that we need to, and I would use my seat on the county council and leverage, frankly, my huge network of employers in this valley to create similar opportunities where we can educate high school kids so that they don't feel othered if they don't go get a college degree.
So important. That is a crucial conversation that I think we have to have a whole lot more of in the county and in the state as well. Give me a real quick sense. You've been out there on the campaign trail. You've been talking to voters and potential voters. What surprised you, or what have you learned talking to voters during the course of the primary?
There's a lot of common themes around development. There's a lot of common themes around social issues, and there are a lot of red meat issues out there, but I tend to stay away from them because at the end of the day, I don't think I think all they do is distract us from getting to the core issues. So development is a concern, rising housing costs. I'm a notable critic of some of our policies that we've had at the state level, and I don't think that they're necessarily tailored to a long-term strategic plan that's going to resolve the housing issues. I think pivoting again towards manufacturing would bring more jobs, frankly, to the valley that would allow people to not look for affordable housing, but increase the affordability of that housing by raising their wages. But this is the most informed electorate I've seen. I think the outcome of the 2020 election really educated people on that they got to pay attention, not just to the stuff that's on cable news, but what's going on in their neighborhoods and their counties.
It's right. What happened in your own backyard is so vital to all of that. Last question for you. This is the question I ask everyone from presidential candidates on down the list, and that is, campaigns are hard. This is rough and tumble stuff. What would make all of this worth it for you, even if you got to June the 26th and you came up short?
Two things that's going to happen no matter what. I'm going all in on these career fairs. I'm going to do these career combines all over the county. and we're going to raise awareness, especially to the West Valley, where they've kind of been left in the dust by a lot of our economic development policy. And then the other thing I'm going to really get bullish on is educating the communities about how to monitor the development that's happening in those communities. A lot of people, when they first see the fence go up and the dirt gets scraped, and then next thing you know, there's this big apartment complex going up in their backyard, they're 2 years too late. So I'm looking to work with a lot of local community groups and organized local community groups to go upstream of their city council and really monitor what's going on at the planning, at the planning commissions and the planning boards in these cities and towns, so that they can get ahead of these issues and really represent and be a voice for their community before it gets to a vote.
Yeah, great stuff. Mike Carey, running for Salt Lake County Council, construction manager background, working on a lot of entrepreneurial things and educating, bringing that trade connection and those conversations is such a crucial part of all of this. Again, your ballot should be in your box, or it should be on your kitchen table, or you should have already put it back in the box and sent it in. Make sure you get out there and vote. And these local races are going to touch you the most. They impact your day-to-day life. It's not just the big national stuff, folks. It's what's happening in your own backyard that matters. Mike Carey, again, running for Salt Lake County Council. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour, truck accidents caused some big traffic messes this morning. Load spill closed I-80 near Lake Point. Delayed traffic coming in from Tooele County for up to an hour. And a rollover crash involving a cement truck that has backed up traffic in both directions on the West Side Belt Route near Redwood Road. Anybody trying to beat the heat by hitting the reservoirs should know how warm or cold the water is. KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla has more.
If you venture to Bear Lake this weekend, you'll be met with sunny skies but cold water. The temperature is currently sitting at 55 degrees. Deer Creek won't be much warmer either. The water's about 59 degrees. But there are some warmer temperatures up north. Pineview is sitting at a warm 70 degrees, and Willard Bay is even warmer at 75.
Yuba State Park and Utah Lake meet in the middle with temperatures around 65. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Several hundred airport workers from New York City's 2 major airports rallied on Thursday demanding improved working conditions. The contract for more than 10,000 airport service workers includes baggage handlers, wheelchair attendants, and cleaners, set to expire on June 30th. They're asking management for a minimum wage of $25 an hour, along with improved health care benefits and additional paid leave. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day right now, 78 points, while the NASDAQ is down about 15. And our KSL weather, looks like the 90-degree temperatures will just stay right where they are for a bit. KSL News Time, 2:01.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
You've been working so hard to keep your lawn and garden looking good. Maybe it's time to make your home look incredible with new window frames and double-pane glass from Advanced Window Products. If you can imagine it, they can create it at their factory in Salt Lake City. Any style, any color, security enhancements to keep your family safe. All this and factory direct pricing. You're buying local and paying less. So seal up your home and reap the energy savings with Advanced Window Products, where they've been creating windows for 38 years. No subcontractors, they're not resellers. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. And right now at their summer special, get an extra $2,500 off on 10 windows or more. They offer 0% financing and even buy now, pay later. Busy season's just hitting. Call now. Advanced Window Products, $2,500 off. but you have to call 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or go to advancedwindowsusa.com.
My wife and I always loved doing everything together. Jiu-jitsu, kayaking, and intimacy was always on point. It was around my early 30s when I noticed a downward trend. Watching a lot of TV, putting on weight, and just full of self-doubt. I had tried another men's clinic with disappointing results. It's the personalized treatment I receive at Revive Men's Health that has been the complete game changer for me. I've got my energy and motivation back, I'm feeling stronger than I did in my 20s, and it made me a much better husband to my wife.
I'm Eric Ramos, healthcare provider at Revive Men's Health. If you are always feeling tired or moody, have a difficult time sleeping, or decreased libido, you may be suffering from low testosterone.
Book your free T-check and exam at Revive Men's Health, Salt Lake City. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Do you know why more homeowners choose Any Hour Services for help when it's time to replace their air conditioners? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and the main reasons people choose Any Hour Services is because of our people, processes, and convenience. People tell us all the time that there's just something different about having an Any Hour Services technician in their home. That's why our over 23,000 Google reviews mention our technicians by name. Another reason is our 7-step install process that we call the Any Hour Difference. It all starts with the needs analysis, where you explain what you like and dislike about your current system. This helps us design and size a system that fits your comfort and efficiency preferences as well as your home's airflow requirements. As for convenience, most of our installs are completed in one day. We also have flexible, no-money down financing options available, even if you've been told no in the past. So if you've been thinking about getting a new air conditioner, call Any Hour Services and schedule a free estimate today. Google Any Hour Services or schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Well, for those still traveling I-215's West Belt, the crash is still there in the cleanup stages. It is affecting both north and southbound directions in Taylorsville, approximately 5400 south. Again, it is the left lanes blocked in each direction. And right now, we're only seeing backups on the southbound side, with the slowdowns reaching not quite 4700 south. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Partly cloudy and hot today, high of 95. Tomorrow, 94 with a chance of rain. And highs stay in the 90s through the weekend. Right now, 91 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
There's been a lot of headlines, of course, of late about higher education, what students are being taught, how that's shaping the future of individuals and society. And often it's the conversations that are happening underneath the headline that often will have the greatest impact. One of those underneath the headlines but vitally important conversations is around religious universities and how they might actually hold some of the solutions to revitalize the essence of a holistic education, provide academic pursuits for all students, and a depth and richness that many universities are missing. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
We are really thrilled to have joining us on the program today Elder Clark G. Gilbert, a General Authority 70 of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also the Commissioner of the Church Educational System. Elder Gilbert, it's great to have you on the program today. You were part of an extraordinary gathering, really a historic moment, in my view, back in our nation's capital a few days ago, where the American Council on Education Commission on Faith-Based Universities convened an inaugural conference. Give us a little, I know there's always, the day the journey began is not the day the journey begins. I know there's a backstory to this, so give us a little bit of that perspective.
Thank you. Yes, we've been working in the church educational system with other institutions that are faith-based for years. We've been working with our friends who are in the evangelical community. We've been working with Catholic universities, and those relationships have been strong and robust. they've often been bilateral. It's just us and someone else, or the evangelicals working with the Catholics, or, different point-to-point relationships. But something at this scale with this many institutions really is unprecedented. And the American Council on Education is the leading national assembly of academic leadership and university presidents in the entire country. And Ted Mitchell, the former Undersecretary of Education, who's now the president of the American Council on Education, saw some of what we were doing. And he said, what if we helped you convene all faith-based universities focused on their presidents? So it was a convening of all presidents with the goal of elevating the visibility of the contributions that are made by faith-based schools, helping you work together and share best practices, and also being a model to other schools of working across religious boundaries and also being true to your mission. And so we took that charge, and this week we had over 35 presidents from faith-based universities all across the country. We had Yeshiva and Gonzaga and Georgetown and Baylor and BYU and so many wonderful schools and their presidents gathered in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club with media and other academic leaders from across the country.
That's so important. And those first meetings are always so important, especially when they're kind of at the edge of and cusp of some historic things that are really important, not only to the time, but are quite timeless. One of the things that really struck me in this gathering is in an age not only of really deep division and a lot of contempt, but there's also obviously the pushing of faith out of the public square, not allowing students on campus to bring their whole authentic self to the table. There's also an accreditation piece to this as well that is important for these faith-based schools. Kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We looked at data in the National Enrollment Statistics database at the Department of Education. And of course, the church educational system has seen dramatic growth, but even across other faith-based schools, the growth from 1980 to today has outpaced the national average by a very significant margin. From 1980 to today, college enrollment has grown by about 50%, whereas religious universities have grown by 80%. Today, there's 1.8 million enrollment in faith-based universities. And, that's a large number of students. And in the church educational system, we've seen that. In 2000, we had roughly 60,000 higher education students in church schools. Today, we have 150,000.
Wow.
And that growth is happening for a reason. I think nationally, people want to be in communities where their identity is respected. Within the church educational system, we've seen really with the polarizing forces in society and in many cases, growing hostility towards faith and religious identity, parents and youth across the church are flocking to BYU and BYU Idaho and BYU Pathway, and we just see an incredible response. And even for me, Boyd, going back to, I grew up as a religious minority in Arizona, and I often, in the Scottsdale area where I grew up, had to stand up and be unique for my faith. And when I got to BYU for the first time, I fit. And I would spend most of my career back as a religious minority in California and Boston. But for a season, we were gathered in with other people who shared our values. And, our friend Rabbi Ari Berman said it so effectively at this convening last year. He said, there's not a crisis of faith in America. There's a crisis of meaning. And young people want to be in places where they can have purpose and meaning. And, that's not always religious, but for members of our church, at least, students want to be in an environment where their values are respected. And I think that's why we've seen such strong enrollment growth at BYU and BYU Idaho.
Yeah, it's such a compelling thing. As you were talking there, Elder Gilbert, I went back to the final conversation I had with Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs from the UK, before he passed away a few years ago, and he took it into the context of that the 21st century, with all of its benefits and all of its technology and knowledge, has given us a maximum of choice but a minimum of meaning, and that our institutions need to get back to that real driving force, which for many universities, not just religious schools, but almost all higher education had a religious component or a meaning component back in their beginnings.
I love that, and I think this idea that we're not just training on technical skills, we're trying to develop the whole person. And you quoted Rabbi Sachs, but our Jewish friends seem to really understand this. And when Rabbi Ari Berman spoke at BYU in the forum, he talked about the difference between a consumer relationship that universities could have with their students, where it's you pay us, we provide you something. And he says that's very different than a covenantal relationship. And, that religious schools, including our universities at BYU and BYU Idaho, Hawaii, and Ensign College, we want students to have a covenantal relationship with the Lord, and we want to make that a central part of their development. And here was at BYU a Jewish rabbi speaking to our students about this. And when he got done, he just 7,000 students standing ovation, because they were grateful to be in an institution that cared about developing the whole person and not just transmitting technical skills.
Yeah, that's right. Getting out of just that transaction and getting into relation, I think, is such an important component that we have been missing in so many places. I also love the fact that this convening, one, it gives such gravitas and connection to faith-based institutions of higher learning at the university level. And there's so much, even just in the context of some of the conversations you had back at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. this week. There's a whole lot of holy envy to go around as you look at the different faith-based universities around the country. Give us, just in our last minute here, Elder Gilbert, maybe a surprise moment, an aha moment, or maybe a moment of holy envy for some of your counterparts.
That's a great phrase. And, we had President Shane Reese on a panel with the presidents of Georgetown and Baylor and Yeshiva, and President Brian Ashton, president of BYU Pathway, on a panel with some of the religious, historically black colleges in America. And I was just inspired with how serious these schools are about their faith-based mission, how they care about who they hire and who they promote, and what they do ministerially to mentor these other students. And I was just grateful for our Catholic and Methodist and Jewish and evangelical friends who are true to who they are and modeling for the whole nation what it means to be serious about religious mission and deeper intent.
I absolutely love that. Elder Clark Gilbert, General Authority 70 of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Commissioner of the Church Education System. And what an extraordinary event at the National Press Club, the American Council on Education's Commission on Faith-Based Universities. I think that is such an important thing for us to be thinking about at a time when higher education has come under a lot of scrutiny. I think it is very safe to say that faith in the future of higher education requires faith to be in the future of higher education. Elder Gilbert, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Great to be with you, Boyd.
That's a great conversation, and a great conversation bringing people together from various faith traditions and looking at higher education in a little different way. We know that students are dealing with all kinds of challenges, from mental health to anxiety, and I think above all of that, they're just hungry for purpose, not just a diploma, because they want to be better people, which will make them better citizens, which will give us a better society. Fantastic conversation. Again, big thanks to Elder Clark Gilbert from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and an important beginning for the American Council on Education's Commission on Faith-Based Universities. Inaugural conference that just took place a few days ago in our nation's capital. A lot to think about, a lot to think again about what we think we know when it comes to higher education. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. All of your favorite KSL hosts in the palm of your hand.
Hello, good morning.
Hey, it's so early.
They're on your phone.
Great vacation photos. Well, thanks. Yeah, that was fun.
Courtesy of the KSL News Radio app.
That's a family-friendly movie. I think you'll really enjoy it. Okay, then. Buy tickets.
When you can't listen live,
Can we talk about something?
Can I wait just a little bit? I got a meeting.
Okay, cool. We'll be here.
listen on the app. The app for KSL News Radio.
You know, I love it when something just clicks. And as many of you know, coming back from Washington, D.C., I had about an extra 37 pounds I was lugging around for way too long, and then everything changed. And what changed, what clicked for me, it was SOTA Weight Loss. SOTA stands for state-of-the-art weight loss because it is, and it just clicked. Having my own nutritionist and coach every step of the way clicked. Not worrying about counting or mixing things. It clicked. Breaking all the bad emotional eating habits. Replacing them with good habits. It just clicked. And you know what else clicked? My belt. I lost 37 pounds in 90 days, and the pounds and inches fell away, and my belt just kept clicking along. Who knew that the sound of my clicking belt would be the sound of my success with SOTA Weight Loss? And you can do it right now as well. Just click. Go to sotaweightloss.com, and if you click on the Request a Nutritionist callback, you'll get 15% off when you begin your program, and a SOTA nutritionist will call you right away. As I always say, when it comes to your SOTA weight loss journey, there's no time to lose. There's only time to win. So start winning today. It'll click for you. State-of-the-art weight loss. Click it today at sotaweightloss.com.
Transform your old, outdated kitchen with Half Price Granite. For a limited time, Half Price Granite is offering special pricing starting at $25 per square foot installed. That's lower than most big box stores. These prices are some of the lowest around. Granite, quartz, marble, and quartzite, all starting at $25 per square foot installed. Call 801-486-1700 or visit halfpricegranite.com. Half Price Granite, affordable luxury.
With big tech coming after our kids,
the inflow of illegal drugs coming to our state.
For Attorney General, we need someone we can trust to do the right thing for the right reason.
That's Derek Brown.
Derek fought to protect kids on social media.
He'll defend the Second Amendment.
Stand up to Biden when he tries to take our lands.
Derek Brown will fight to secure the border.
And that's the kind of leadership we really need.
We trust Derek Brown for Attorney General.
I'm supporting Derek Brown.
Paid for by Derek Brown for Attorney General.
We just want to have enough money for retirement.
And travel to visit our grandchildren.
I understand. That's why at Fisher Investments, we start by getting to know each other, so I can learn about your family, lifestyle, goals and needs, allowing us to tailor your portfolio.
What about commission-based products?
We don't sell those. We're a fiduciary, obligated to act in your best interest.
So how do your management fees work?
We have a simple management fee based on the value of your portfolio, so we do better when you do better.
We appreciate that kind of transparency.
We also check in with you regularly to keep you up to date on the markets and your portfolio.
Well, what other services do you offer?
As a client, you have access to resources on investing, financial planning, estate planning, Social Security, Medicare, and more.
Wow, sounds like Fisher Investments has everything we need.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at fisherinvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Springtime in Utah, and if you're a business owner that hates to paint, do what business owner Al did. He called Rhino Shield.
I was watching TV one night and saw the Rhino Shield ad, and I thought, well, if they can do a house, they can probably do a building.
Rhino Shield's ceramic technology is formulated for our unique climate here in Utah and is Class 1 fire rated.
So they came out and they gave me a price, showed me how the Rhino works, how it lasts, and how the guarantee works.
Utah residential or business, get the 25-year guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield right now for 15% off the regular price.
They waited for us to leave, and they worked Saturday and Sunday so they wouldn't affect our business at all. This was the great part of it. I came back Sunday night, and you couldn't even tell they were here. There was no paint on the ground. They did a fantastic job.
Utah, this offer is limited, so call 435-246-4466, 435-246-4466, or visit rhinoshieldwest.com.
Go Rhino Shield! Get Mr. Max Performance Missionary Package. Includes 1 performance suit, 4 and collar stretch shirts, 3 ties, 1 mission belt, 1 pair of Echo or Johnston & Murphy shoes. Just $595.
Join KSL and Tim and Amanda this Friday from 3 to 5 at the Salt Lake NPS store at 1600 Empire Road, npsstore.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, it's been a day of traffic disasters on Salt Lake County freeways. Second, there are a couple of places in Utah where it's warm enough to water ski already. And third, airport workers at JFK and LaGuardia in New York rallying for higher pay and improved working conditions. 91 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. And as you all know, on this program, we don't reward bad behavior. We want to focus on things that actually matter. And I think it's time we're equal opportunity offenders when it comes to the Democrats, the Republicans, whoever the candidates are for whatever the office is, from the highest office in the land on down. We've got to shift gears and get back to the issues that actually matters. Really thrilled to have joining us Mike Rollins, of course, co-founder of No Labels, was mayor of Dallas from 2011 to 2019, and a part of an important movement that's changing the conversation in the country to get us past rewarding bad behavior and actually getting to the important issues of the day. And Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Boyd. Appreciate your interest.
All right, so let's take a look at this. Obviously, there's all kinds of things you can point to on both sides of the aisle with all the problems and the challenges and the drama stuff. But where should we be really lasering in, and what should we be demanding of those seeking office in this country in terms of what are they focusing on?
I think it's a very good question. Look, America is made up of really kind of three groups. Extremists on the left, extremists on the right, and what I call the common sense majority in the middle. And everybody loves drama, and there's an old news thing: if it bleeds, it leads. So that's where people's eyeballs go to. But the problem is that doesn't move the country along, and the common sense majority feels alienated from it. They feel that the government's not doing what they need to do, solving problems that need to be resolved, and we spend too much time on personality politics. And the media are supposed to be the firemen putting out the fire, but they're the ones that are kind of throwing gasoline on the fire on this.
Yeah, it's the arsonist. I think the portion of the media that's the problem.
They are. And so anyway, it keeps blowing up, but we need as folks that are trying to get things done, we need to focus back on really the critical issues that we've got to face. To me, fiscal policy is extremely important. Our entitlement programs are going to go bankrupt. How we deal with major issues like national security, what's happening on the border, those things are critical to making sure that you and I continue to have this great life in America.
Yeah, and so important. And a lot of your work at No Labels, of course, the late Joe Lieberman was a good friend of this show, would come on regularly, and one of those people who just understood that it's not about solving political problems, it's about solving the American people's problems, and those are policy issues. And those
well put.
Yeah, and those conversations are just so vital now. I know that No Labels chose not to put forward candidates this time around, and the question I've been dying to ask you, Mike, is I think this is all about the art of the possible. You talk about that common sense. We call it the movable middle, or the center left to center right, where most of the nation lives. But it seems to me we have to get to this art of the possible. I think if you had a candidate, whether it's a no-label candidate or an independent candidate, if they got to 28 or 30%, I think that might be the key for people saying, oh, wait a minute, if we can get to 30, we can get to 50. And that art of the possible kicks in. So describe the kinds of conversations we should be having so that we don't allow the extremes on the far left and far right to really drive the country and drive it into the ditch.
Well, let me expound on what you just said. We don't even need to get to 50, okay, because of our electoral process.
Right.
Pluralities win state electoral votes. And so if you get 35% in, for instance, my home state of Texas, you win all those Texas electorates, okay?
Yeah.
And so they're out there. The voters, that's what, you have 40% of voters that are in that group that you're just talking about. Sadly, this time, which would have been a great time because so many people don't want this matchup that we've got, we could have made hay on this. The problem is, okay, and I'll answer your question about what we should be focused on in a second, but the problem is that we've got a duopoly here.
Right.
And we've got Coke and Pepsi against each other, and the talent and the leadership and the politicians that put themselves up come from either side, and we don't grow from the middle. And so that's one of the big issues.
Yeah.
So that's the dynamic on the political front. But I think coming back to the issues, I think that's what America cares about. Now, we've all got our own issues, whether it's education, whether it's women's reproductive rights, whether it's anything that we care about. But mainly, people care about bread and butter issues. They care that we don't have inflation. We care that their retirement's going to be there when they say. And those are the things that we need to be focused on. We've got to do the budget process better in Congress. Yeah. Okay, there's no question. No. That's the one job Congress has.
That's right.
And they don't do it.
And if they don't want to do that job, we should give them another job somewhere else.
Exactly right.
Mike Rollins, co-founder of No Labels, Important Conversations. We look forward to having you back, Mike, because I think you're speaking to a lot of our listeners that are saying, okay, enough is enough. Let's get on to something better, and together we can actually make that happen. Mike, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Boyd.
All right, we'll step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news. Don't go anywhere. More Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top local story this hour. Salt Lake County has a new health department director. Dorothy Adams replaces Dr. Angela Dunn, who left in February to join the CDC. Adams has been serving as the interim executive director since Dunn left. A Utah couple is speaking out for National Secure Your Load Day after the wife wound up flying out of a pickup truck the day before their wedding. Alex Kessinger says his now wife flew out of the truck with the mattress at about 50 miles an hour.
If you have something in the back of your truck and you don't strap it down, you're not thinking. Because if you thought, you would strap it down because it's the easiest answer to a question. Should you strap it in? Yes. It's common sense. And I just wasn't thinking.
She ended up in the hospital and went to the dentist, but still went through with the ceremony the next day. For tips on how to make sure your load is secure, you can head to KSLNewsRadio.com. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The widow of Hunter Biden's late brother took the stand today in the federal case against the president's surviving son. Hunter Biden is charged with lying about his drug addiction on a gun background check form and using drugs while he owned a handgun. Under cross-examination, Hallie Biden conceded it's difficult to remember exactly where Hunter was at certain points, told jurors it's all kind of vague. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day, closing trading at 78 points higher, and the NASDAQ was down about 15 points. And our KSL weather, it's going to stay hot. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Gabby.
Hey, Gabby. It's Jennifer Coolidge. Hi. I'm so glad I reached you at 2 a.m.
Oh, of course. Anyone with a Discover card can call and talk to a real person 24/7. Now, how can I help?
Yeah, I used my Discover card to buy these yellow pleather pajamas, and I'm just not sure I'm pulling them off.
24/7 U.S.-based customer service. It pays to Discover. Limitations apply. Learn more at discover.com/credit card.
The best things in life, they come in twos. 2 scoops of ice cream, 2 tacos. And now for a limited time, get our best deal of the year. Buy any phone when you switch to Consumer Cellular and get 2 months of service free. That's right, the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage as Big Wireless, now with 2 months free. Proof the best things in life really do come in twos. Visit consumercellular.com or call 1-888-FREEDOM. Second and third month of monthly base service fee waived for new customers with the purchase of a phone and activation by July 31st, 2024. Taxes, fees, and third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Les Olson IT is now a RECA graphic arts and production systems dealer. RECA chose Les Olson because of our reputation for superior service and national recognition. Les Olson IT chose RECA Graphics because they're the best value compared to other commercial-grade printers. RECA excels in high volume, high speed, high resolution, and offers an exciting 5th color. Learn more at lesolson.com.
Les Olson IT.
You know, Deb, you and I have had this conversation so many times. We think, oh, I wish I had a little more light here or maybe a ceiling fan there.
That's why we love Master Electrical. So anytime we have an electrical problem, we know we can call them and they will give us their upfront pricing guarantee.
Because we're not going to do it yourself. We're going to leave it to the professionals. And this upfront pricing guarantee is fantastic. I'm sure you've been bitten by bids in the past where they say, oh, that's going to take half a day. And then 2 weeks later, the bid and the invoice have nothing to do with each other.
Not only will you get their upfront pricing guarantee, but you will never see an upcharge. Their pricing system simply won't allow it.
Master Electrical proudly serves from Logan to Santaquin.
They do everything that has to do with electrical, and they're always open, including for emergency services. The phone number to call is 801-543-2222.
801-543-2222, or check them out online at masterelectrical.com.
Paid for by Lyman for Utah.
Governor Cox has presided over the worst collapse in housing affordability in Utah's history. Using taxpayer dollars to subsidize large developers is not the answer. If we don't fix this now, our biggest export will become Utahns. As governor, I have a plan to improve supply chains and permitting, to reduce government spending, which drives high inflation and interest rates, and to create a fair property tax system. I'm Phil Lyman, and I'm running for governor.
Phil Lyman for governor.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We still have the clearing of this earlier crash that has blocked left lanes of traffic both north and southbound. I-215's westbound in Taylorsville at approximately 5400 south. Estimated time to have it completely cleared is 4 o'clock, so that's going to affect your drive home. If that's your normal route, plan an alternate. We still have southbound delays from 4700 south to the crash, and then also some heavy and slow traffic northbound I-15 in South Salt Lake. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Partly cloudy and hot today, a high around 95. It's already up to 92, and the highs stay in the 90s through the weekend. We've got sunny skies right now. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson.
On Utah's home for elevated conversation.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, it is a great privilege to have joining us on the program from our nation's capital. We have Representative Celeste Malloy, of course, from the state of Utah, and Representative Jim Jordan joins us on the line as well. Thanks to both of you. I know it's a busy season there in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the show.
Good to be with you.
Thanks, Boyd.
All right, let's start with something a little close to home here. Representative Malloy, I know you have been focused a lot on some of the things that have been coming out, a vote that we were hoping would happen on the RECA program in terms of what that might mean. Give us a sense of where we are on that and what it means for those in your district.
I'll start with what it means because I think Chairman Jordan's actually better at talking about where we're at because it goes through his committee.
Yeah.
RECA, the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, that's the downwinder fund. I mean, that's what everybody in Utah knows it as. And this is the money that comes to families who have somebody who was in the area at the time we were above ground testing nuclear weapons, and they were exposed during that period, and they have one of the diseases that has been linked to radiation exposure. And most of those people are in Utah's 2nd district. This is this is the heart of RECA country. So I know it's really important to people in Utah that we make sure we have that fund continue. And we've been working on this. It goes through the Judiciary Committee in the House and in the Senate because, so I have a lot of people ask me why. The reason it goes through Judiciary is because it's a settlement of the lawsuits from families who had loved ones who were exposed. So, Chairman, if you
Sure. Good. Celeste, good to be with you. Boy, thanks for having us. And Celeste has been just unbelievable champion of helping the people who deserve and need help. And we are trying to get this straight to the floor. We really like Celeste's bill, and we've been working with leadership. We think there's a good chance that we can actually get her bill on the floor and get it passed here ASAP. But as you know, there's a sort of a competing bill that expands the program and goes in other folks in other states, not just the downwinders, that Senator Hawley has. That one is pretty darn expensive. Where this is just a continuation of the program, making sure that people who deserve and warrant help receive it. And there's been no better champion than Celeste on this issue. And as she pointed out, this is her district. She's here fighting for the folks that she gets the privilege of representing. So we're hoping we can get that done real soon. But we're advocating. I support it. Her bill. We're advocating for it to go straight to the floor because we think we can get this passed. And it needs to be passed because the program actually expires on Friday.
Yeah.
2 days.
Yeah. And so as Representative Malloy, talk to us just a little bit about, I think this idea of getting this version, the bill that you've put forward, on the floor and done is so often we see as these battles go on, the uncertainty, and especially for those who were impacted by that being a downwinder, as we call it here in the state of Utah, getting rid of that uncertainty. It's just one of those things that someone dealing with some of the effects of this, some of the cancers and radiation, some of those things, give us a sense in terms of why this approach is going to help get rid of that uncertainty and give them a little more confidence in what's ahead for them.
Yeah, this is a program that has to be reauthorized every time the authorization runs out. And it's been long enough now since we were doing above ground testing that people are starting to forget why this is so important. A lot of the fund has already been paid out because the exposure happened, 50 years ago for the most part. As we're trying to reauthorize it, now there are two problems in Congress. One, people don't remember that folks in Utah were exposed through no fault of their own, but also there are other types of radiation exposure in other parts of the country now that people are trying to tack on to the same reauthorization. And so what we're trying to do is make sure we get a right-sized bill that addresses the need in Utah without putting so many people on this life raft that it sinks under the weight. And maybe what we're going to have to do is introduce separate pieces of legislation for other types of exposure that happen to other places in the country. And we're working with our colleagues on that. But the reason it matters so much to people in Utah is that they've been counting on this. The government has admitted liability, and this is the fund that was created to cover that liability. And that's a different situation than any of these other exposure scenarios in the country.
So important. Representative Jordan, anything we should be watching for in the coming days in terms of making some progress on this or seeing that path open up where maybe this version gets done, and as Representative Malloy pointed out, maybe there's some others for other areas of the country with different issues.
Yeah, look, there's expansions that may in fact be appropriate. We do have to, I think, understand we have a $34 trillion debt, and we got to figure out how we pay for those. I'm not saying we're opposed to those, but I think as Celeste just so I think eloquently pointed out is we know that people were harmed by the downwinders and the radiation when that exposure happened. They deserve to be compensated. They need to be. Many of them have. There should be a continuation of this program. So let's just take care of that first. That's what I support is her clean reauth bill, and then we'll look at clean reauthorization, I should say, and we'll look at what may or may not need to be added and expanded and also put into law. But let's focus on her bill first.
Yeah. Let's shift gears just a little bit to another very timely conversation, both here in the state of Utah and across the country. Of course, President Biden doing another executive authorization this time, a little different from the straight shot there with a signature and a pen, dealing with the border and border security. We often talk about it in the context of rule of law and compassion are compatible principles. But it seems the way the president's going about this with this latest round just creates more confusion than clarity. Representative Jordan, let's start with you in terms of how do we get to a better, different conversation that can actually deal with both border security and dealing with the immigration system?
Well, first of all, I mean, I thought the border was secure. I mean, every time Mayorkas testifies in front of our committee, the Homeland Security Committee, or over in the Senate, he tells us, no, the border is secure. Never pay no attention to the 8 million illegals who come into the country, on pace to get to 12 million in President Biden's presidency. I tell people that's equivalent to the entire population of our home state, Ohio. You know, that we're the 7th largest state. That's the magnitude of this problem. So they told us there was no problem. President Biden told us the border was secure. Even the border czar herself, the vice president, said the border was secure. And now, 5 months before the election, they're like, Shazam, we're going to do something. I mean, none of this makes sense. Everyone, I think, in this country has realized that this is a problem created intentionally, deliberately, willfully by the Biden administration. And what we need to do is go back to the policies that were working to secure our border. And then the public, then the American people are willing to say, okay, once you've secured it, like we had under President Trump, once you've done that, then we can talk about what changes may or may not need to be made to the system. But securing the border first is what has to be done.
Yeah, and it seems, Representative Malloy, that there are some of those things, as Representative Jordan pointed out, in terms of things like the stay in Mexico policy, some of those things that clearly are in place, or just enforcement that needs to happen as that first step in terms of security.
Yeah, I've said over and over out on the campaign trail that I'm sort of baffled that President Biden hasn't implemented Remain in Mexico and started enforcing the parole rule just as a cynical political move to be able to win re-election, because the most uniting issue in the country right now is the border. Democrats, Republicans, Independents all agree that the border needs to be under control. Seems like maybe he listened in on one of my campaign events.
Yeah.
But isn't implementing it the way I would have advised him to. But it does seem like they finally realized they cannot win an election if they don't address the border. So they're trying to address the border without offending their base, I think.
No, I think you're right. They got to walk this tightrope. Because remember, on day one, January 20th, 2021, President Biden made a decision that he was going to change 3 fundamental policies that were in place under President Trump. He said, we're no longer going to build the wall. We're no longer going to have Remain in Mexico while we evaluate while we evaluate their claim. And then third, he said, if you get to our country, you will not be detained. You will be released, given some court date 4, 5, 6 years in the future where you show up. So no wall to get over, no wait in Mexico, and you will be released. Yeah. Well, who the heck wouldn't come to the greatest country in history? And so that's a deliberate decision they made. And the country said, time out. This impacts our school systems, our healthcare systems. We're seeing some of these people get in here who are very bad people who attack police officers. Laken Riley's family certainly knows what this means in an up close and personal way with the tragedy of her death there in Georgia. So that's the situation. And now here they are 5 months before an election, and they're like, whoa, maybe we better listen to what Celeste Malloy's been saying on the campaign trail, for goodness sake. And it's all pretend. And again, I think the American people have common sense, and they see this all for what it really is, a campaign ploy that I don't think is going to work.
Yeah, and it might make an even bigger mess out of a messy situation. Instead of helping them win an election, it might just mean that when President Trump wins and we go into a new administration, it's an even bigger mess than it would have been, if that's possible.
Yeah, we got to get to the clarity rather than the confusion, and we appreciate both of you joining us today. Jim Jordan, of course, representative from Ohio, Celeste Malloy from right here in the state of Utah. Thanks for both of you for joining us on a very busy day in our nation's capital, and we look forward to having you back on the program soon.
All right.
Thanks, Boyd.
I just elevated my checking account with Utah Community Credit Union. Tim, I'm so blown away at what I get with my elevated checking account at UCCU. I get so many benefits. I get cell phone protection and roadside assistance. The one that blows me away the most is telehealth. I actually get zero copay telehealth with my checking account from UCCU.
Did you know you also get a 0.25% loan discount? It's one of the many things. And if you like to travel or you're on the road quite a bit, a free ATM nationwide, 30,000 ATM locations that you can use while you're out.
Utah basketball star Walker Kessler and Utah Community Credit Union have come together to announce this brand new elevated checking account with more benefits, more savings, more online protections than ever before.
Yeah, there's even something for dark web monitoring, which I have never heard of before, but you can find out more by just going to uccu.com.
And open an elevated checking account online or stop by any branch.
UCCU, you're going to love where you bank.
Utah's strong winds can cause huge damage to your roof that you can't see. Your roof might need repair. Don't wait for a disaster. Call the Masters at Master Roofing for an honest inspection at 801-383-0072. Specializing in small repairs, Master Roofing handles everything from patching holes to full roof replacements. Schedule your free assessment at masterroofingutah.com.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
My friends at Dave's Bernina in St. George and Provo are having a big spring sale, so you can get her the sewing machine that she dreams of. Featuring for a limited time, 2.99% finance offer for 60 months on certain machines.
And did you know that magic is coming? The top of the line, all new Bernina 990. Come in for exciting special pre-order offers.
Hurry in for amazing bargains on trade-ins, classroom, and demo machines that come with warranties.
Many models on display, from Burnett to Bernina 435, 735, and 475 Cape machines. Even the Bernina 790 Pro, while they last. And this week only, discounts on Bernina accessories and hoops.
Whether it's for mom, sister, daughter, or the new graduate, the perfect gift for her is at Dave's Bernina.
This is the savings event for you.
Dave's Bernina, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. And as we round out the program today and as we look at what took place on June the 6th, 1944, of course, when Allied forces invaded Normandy, largest amphibious offensive in the history of the world, and the March of Freedom went on from there. And there's so many things that we'll talk about today and tomorrow, in particular, as we celebrate 80 years since that fateful day. I want to go to some of the things that are a little under the headlines, some things that we haven't really been thinking about in terms of what took place on that day. And I want to go in particular to the President of the United States at the time, Franklin D. Roosevelt. And on D-Day, on June the 6th, he actually addressed the nation. Now, he addressed the nation and then he led the nation, but not in the way that you might think. Roosevelt addressed the nation for about 37 seconds, and then he led the nation in prayer. I can't imagine either the current or the former president taking 6.5 minutes to not talk at the nation, not speak to the nation, but to lead the nation in prayer. So I actually want to go through it. It's a fascinating thing. So I want to begin with President Roosevelt. He, again, told his fellow Americans, he said, this is a big time. And so we're going to change my conversation with you. Take a listen.
And so, in this poignant hour, I ask you to join with me in prayer. Almighty God, our sons, pride of our nation, this day have set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic, our religion, and our civilization, and to set free a suffering humanity. Lead them straight and true. Give strength to their arms, stoutness to their hearts, steadfastness in their faith. They will need thy blessings. Their road will be long and hard. For the enemy is strong. He may hurl back our forces. Success may not come with rushing speed, but we shall return again and again. And we know that by thy grace and by the righteousness of our cause, our sons will triumph.
That was the beginning of the prayer by the President of the United States on June the 6th, 1944. President Roosevelt went on in that prayer to say, look, this is not about a quest for power, but for freedom.
They fight not for the lust of conquest. They fight to end conquest. They fight to liberate. They fight to let justice arise and tolerance and goodwill among all thy people. They yearn but for the end of battle, for their return to the haven of home. Some will never return. Embrace these, Father, and receive them, thy heroic servants, into thy kingdom.
President Roosevelt praying that this was a fight to end conquest, and that this was not something that the nation wanted, but that the nation would do. It was interesting, within this prayer, again, offered by the President of the United States with the American people, he said he actually resisted the call from many of his colleagues in Washington, D.C. and around the world to call the American people to a day of prayer. He had something a little different in mind.
Many people have urged that I call the nation into a single day of special prayer. But because the road is long and the desire is great, I ask that our people devote themselves in a continuance of prayer as we rise to each new day, and again when each day is spent. Let words of prayer be on our lips, invoking thy help to our efforts.
I thought it was important that President Roosevelt prayed because the road would be long, that a simple day of prayer was not enough. I think that's with a little bit of